The next morning, the air over the school felt off. First, it was the security guard, usually half asleep behind the front gate, standing tall, scanning the horizon like he was expecting a motorcade. Then came the email. Emergency staff meeting, 9:30 sharp, attendance mandatory. Ms. Galloway frowned at her screen. That's not normal. Still, she brushed it off. Probably some new district policy. Nothing she couldn't dismiss with an eye roll. She sipped lukewarm coffee and strode down the hall. Her heels clicked confidently on the linoleum floor. Then a shadow moved outside the window. Something big. Outside, students gathered around the flagpole for morning announcements, but all heads turned as a low, mechanical hum began to rise over the rooftops. It was distant at first, barely noticeable, but growing, fast, a rumble, then a roar. Birds scattered from nearby trees. Students looked up, shielding their eyes. Teachers stepped out of classrooms, squinting into the sky. And then, it appeared. A black helicopter, sleek, silent, except for the blades slicing the air like warning bells. No markings on the side, except one. A small golden TW logo on the tail. Principal Dorsey stepped out of the building just as the chopper began its descent. His tie flapped wildly in the downwash. His mouth moved, but no one could hear him. The helicopter landed right in the middle of the soccer field. Grass flattened beneath the weight of something far bigger than its blades. And then, the door opened. Inside room 204, Ms. Galloway's whiteboard marker stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked toward the window, then narrowed. "What on earth? Ms. G," one student said, pointing. Is that Tiger Woods?" She laughed, sharp, disbelieving. "Don't be ridiculous." But then the hallway exploded in whispers, and another student opened their phone. Live stream, confirmed. Tiger Woods. On the field. Ms. Galloway's hand trembled slightly as she capped her marker. A voice crackled over the intercom. "Ms. Galloway, please report to the main office. Immediately." Her stomach dropped. The hallway outside her classroom was silent. Too silent. She smoothed her blouse with shaky fingers, opened the door, and walked toward the front office, where one of the most powerful men in the world was waiting. The secretary didn't meet her eyes. That was the first red flag. "Ms. Galloway, they're waiting for you in conference room B," the woman said, her voice clipped, too formal. She pushed a laminated visitor pass across the desk. "You'll need this," Galloway frowned. "They?" But the secretary was already typing something she clearly wasn't reading. Down the hall, conference room B had never felt so cold. Inside sat three men. One wore a tailored navy suit and stood as she entered, Principal Dorsey, hands clasped tight behind his back. Next to him, an older man with steely eyes and military posture, Earl Woods Sr., and beside him, perfectly still, his elbows resting on the table, fingers interlocked, Tiger Woods. Ms. Galloway stopped in the doorway. The air in her lungs froze. "Thank you for coming," Dorsey said. "Please, sit." Tiger didn't speak. He just stared at her. Calm, focused, like she was the ball and he'd already chosen his club. Galloway sat. "Do you know why you're here?" Dorsey asked. She cleared her throat. "I assume this is about yesterday's incident with Charlie." "Incident," Tiger repeated. His voice was low, even. Ms. Galloway shifted in her chair. "I assure you," she said quickly, "I followed protocol. The student was disruptive. He challenged my grading in front of the class. It's important to maintain discipline." Tiger didn't blink. "So you threw him out?" She straightened her shoulders. "I've been teaching for 12 years, Mr. Woods. I've seen what happens when certain students think rules don't apply to them." Earl's eyes flashed, but he said nothing. Tiger leaned forward. "And what happens when teachers think that?" Principal Dorsey slid a tablet across the table. "I assume you haven't seen this." She looked down. "The video. From Charlie's class. Front row view. Crystal clear. Sound on." She watched her own face twist with anger. Heard her voice rise, unprovoked. Saw Charlie's calm tone. Heard him say, "I just want to understand the math." The room was silent. When the video ended, Tiger finally broke the quiet. "My son didn't call me," he said. "Didn't beg for help. He sent me this and said nothing." Ms. Galloway's voice cracked. "I didn't know he was recording." "He wasn't," Tiger said. "Another student was, and 20,000 people have already seen it." Her heart skipped. "Your mistake," Earl said, his voice gravel and thunder, "wasn't misgrading him. It was assuming you could humiliate him and no one would notice." "Do you want my resignation?" she asked quietly. "No," Tiger said. She looked up, confused. "I want change." Outside, a second SUV pulled up to the school. A man in a dark suit stepped out, holding a thick manila folder marked State Education Board, Immediate Attention, and in the background, Charlie Woods stood by the flagpole watching through the window. He wasn't just back, he was watching everything. Principal Dorsey was sweating through his collar. He wasn't built for this kind of pressure, not the kind that involved national headlines, helicopters on school property, and Tiger Woods sitting in his conference room like a loaded weapon. But it wasn't Tiger he feared now. It was the man across from him. Earl Woods Sr. hadn't moved in 10 minutes. He sat like stone, silent, observing, judging. Dorsey cleared his throat. "We'd like to propose a private apology between Ms. Galloway and Charlie. Off the record, of course, that might be—" "No," Tiger interrupted flatly. In the hallway outside, Charlie leaned against the wall, staring at his phone. He wasn't texting, just watching the video, over and over again. His hands were cold, his chest tight. Part of him still wondered if he had overreacted, if maybe he had come off like a spoiled kid. But then he looked up and saw the media van pulling into the parking lot. Too late for apologies now. Inside conference room B, Ms. Galloway sat rigid in her chair. "You're turning this into a circus," she said, forcing her voice to stay calm. "Do you know how many students challenge teachers every day?" "I'm not here because of who my son is," Tiger replied. "I'm here because of who you thought he wasn't." She frowned. "You thought he'd stay silent. You thought you could erase his voice with volume." "I followed the handbook," she snapped. "He was disruptive." "You were wrong," Earl said suddenly. His voice didn't rise, but it hit like a hammer. "You didn't just fail him. You taught that entire room that anger outranks honesty." The door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped in without knocking. "Excuse me, I'm with the State Board." He dropped a thick folder on the table in front of Dorsey. "A formal investigation has been opened into discriminatory disciplinary patterns at this school." Ms. Galloway's mouth fell open. "You've got to be kidding me." The man didn't smile. "We never kid about data. The Woods incident was just the trigger." Tiger stood slowly. "We're not looking for blood, just accountability." "And if we refuse?" Dorsey asked. Earl rose with him. "Then you're not facing a press conference, you're facing a courtroom." Outside the room, Charlie was called in. He stepped through the door quietly, eyes flicking across the room, meeting his dad's, then his grandfather's, and finally Ms. Galloway's. She stood. "Charlie," she began, "I never intended to—" "It's okay," Charlie said. Her mouth opened to continue, but his calm stopped her. "No, really," he added. "It's okay. Because this time someone listened." He turned to leave, but not before placing a folded piece of paper on the table. His quiz. The one she'd marked wrong, the final answer circled in red, 5. Beside it, in fresh ink. 30 minutes later, a press conference was hastily arranged in the school auditorium. Principal Dorsey stood stiffly behind a podium, surrounded by nervous board members and one deeply uncomfortable superintendent. Tiger stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching. "I want to begin by issuing a formal apology to the Woods family," Dorsey read from a paper. "We acknowledge mistakes were made and are taking immediate steps to ensure our staff meets the standards of fairness and respect all students deserve." A reporter raised a hand. "Is Charlie Woods returning to this school?" Tiger stepped forward before Dorsey could answer. "No," he said plainly. Gasps filled the room. "Charlie deserves better. So do a lot of kids here. So starting today, we're building something better." As the press erupted in questions, Tiger handed a single page to the superintendent. An official statement of intent. The Woods Foundation would be opening its own private school in the city, funded, staffed, and led by educators handpicked to protect and empower students like Charlie. In bold at the bottom, enrollment opens in 48 hours, priority given to applicants from the current district. Ms. Galloway saw the headline flash across her phone screen before the conference had even ended. "Tiger Woods declares war on broken schools, starts his own." And she suddenly understood this wasn't revenge, it was replacement. The next morning, the school looked different, not physically, but in mood, in fear. Parents called nonstop. Some pulled their children out entirely. Others demanded answers. Staff whispered in hallways. The phrase Tiger Woods echoed off every wall like a ghost that wouldn't leave. In the front office, Ms. Galloway sat alone, staring at the note left on her desk. "Administrative leave pending review." She gripped the edges of her chair. Her knuckles turned white. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had tenure. She had awards. She had control. Now she had silence, but worse, doubt. For the first time in her career, she didn't know if she'd actually taught anything yesterday. Across town, the atmosphere was the opposite of panic. It was purpose. The Woods Foundation's announcement had triggered a movement. Emails flooded in, not just from journalists or donors, but from students, teachers, custodians, counselors, all sharing quiet moments of disrespect, dismissal, and systemic injustice they'd endured in silence. Now they were speaking up. Even former students of Ms. Galloway wrote in. One said, "She used to be the best teacher I had until she stopped listening." Another, "I thought I was the problem. Now I know better." The truth was spreading faster than any school could contain. At a hastily arranged board meeting, the superintendent's voice cracked as she slammed her hand on the table. "We are hemorrhaging," another member read off a list. 43 confirmed withdrawals, 10 more pending, and that's just today. "Do we sue him?" one asked, desperate. "Is that even possible?" "On what grounds?" another snapped. "He's fixing what we broke." Back home, Charlie sat across from Tiger in the study, both quiet as light filtered in through half-closed blinds. "I feel like I broke something," Charlie said finally. "Like, I started something I can't control." "You didn't break it," Tiger replied. "You revealed it." He turned his laptop toward Charlie. Dozens of highlighted messages filled the screen. "Charlie, you gave people permission to stop accepting disrespect. Not every kid has that chance. But now, maybe they will." Charlie leaned back in his chair. The weight of it all sat heavy on his chest. "But I wasn't trying to start a revolution." "No one ever is," Tiger said. "They just refuse to sit down when they're told." That night, while the world spun around them, Ms. Galloway opened her laptop. She hovered over the record button for a full minute. Her finger trembled, and then finally she clicked. The video began. "Charlie," she whispered, eyes red, "I watched that video again today. I watched it 10 times, and I realized something." She paused, her lip quivering. "I didn't throw you out because of what you said. I threw you out because I felt threatened by how you said it. Calm, clear, smarter than me. And I couldn't handle it." Tears streaked her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I forgot that good teachers listen more than they lecture. And I forgot that even a child can be right." She reached for the screen, then stopped. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. You taught me something, Charlie, and I won't forget it." The next morning, her video appeared online. No fanfare, no caption. Just the raw, shaky footage of a teacher breaking down the wall she'd built for years. Charlie watched it, alone, twice. Then he walked into his dad's office. "I want her to teach again." Tiger looked up. "Come again?" Charlie's voice didn't shake. "She made a mistake. But she owned it. And that's exactly the kind of person we want teaching at our school." Tiger studied him. There was no anger in Charlie's face, only clarity, not punishment, redemption. It had been 1 week since the helicopter landed. 1 week since a question about a math problem turned into a national conversation. And yet, for Charlie Woods, the most important moment happened far away from cameras and courtrooms. It happened in silence, inside a small, freshly painted classroom. He stood in the doorway, watching Ms. Galloway rearrange a stack of new textbooks. She hadn't noticed him yet. She looked different. No heels, no lipstick, just a soft blue cardigan and tired eyes that carried more weight than they had a week ago. Charlie stepped inside. She turned. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then, she smiled. A small, fragile thing. Real. "You sure about this?" she asked. Her voice barely above a whisper. Charlie shrugged. "You said even a kid can be right," she chuckled. "I did." "Then yeah," he said. "I'm sure." At the official opening of the Woods Academy, local news vans lined the street. But Tiger gave no speech. He stood off to the side while Charlie addressed the small crowd. He didn't say much, just this. "This school isn't about being perfect. It's about being better, for everyone." And that was enough. Inside, the classrooms were filled with mismatched chairs, donated laptops, and teachers who believed in second chances. Among them, Galloway, now simply Ms. G, standing at the back of her new classroom watching her students, not managing them, listening. Meanwhile, the old school down the road was drowning. 4 more teachers quit. Enrollment dropped below safe funding levels. Board members were replaced. The superintendent resigned for personal reasons. And somewhere, deep in an HR server, a red digital stamp marked "Terminated" appeared beside Ms. Galloway's former district profile. But it didn't matter anymore. She had already started over. One afternoon, weeks later, Charlie stayed behind after class. The final bell had rung, and the hallways were quiet. Ms. G was erasing the board when she heard his voice behind her. You know what the real answer to that question was? She turned. Which one? The one from that day. The one that started all this. She smiled. -5, right? Charlie shook his head. Nope. It was patience. That's what I should have shown. And what I think, maybe we both learned. She blinked. Her eyes misted. Then she nodded. Yeah, I think we did. Outside, Tiger waited in the car, watching the school through the windshield. He wasn't a man who smiled easily. But today, he did. This place wasn't built with concrete or steel. It was built on conviction. And most of all, on Charlie. He'd seen his son transform, not just from a victim into a voice, but from a boy into a leader. He had asked a question, and now he was building a world where questions wouldn't get you punished, but heard. A month later, a letter arrived for Charlie. No return address, no signature, just a small handwritten note. Dear Charlie, I showed your story to my school board. They listened. We're changing things. Thank you for helping me find my voice. Tapu. J.D., age 13, Ohio. Charlie read it twice. Then he walked into the Woods Academy's media room, grabbed a whiteboard, and wrote in big, bold letters, "Your voice is welcome here." He hung it above the front door. This story was intense, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane. When a strict teacher expelled 14-year-old Charlie Woods for disrespecting authority after he questioned a grading mistake, she thought she was just dealing with another entitled athlete's son. But before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The next morning, as the deafening roar of helicopter blades drowned out the school bell, her pulse spiked. The door opened, and Tiger Woods himself stepped out, eyes cold, expression unreadable. Why had golf's greatest legend come to her school? Unannounced, uninvited, and visibly furious. The day before the blades tore through the morning sky, everything felt routine. Charlie Woods sat in room 204, third row from the front, tapping a pencil against his notebook. Algebra class. Quiet, almost peaceful, until the mistake. Question 4, Charlie said calmly, raising his hand. I think the correct answer should be -5, not 4. Ms. Galloway didn't look up from her grading app. It's 4. Charlie hesitated. But according to the formula, her eyes snapped up. I'm sorry, are you correcting me? She said sharply. A few students looked over. No, I've had enough of your attitude this week, she snapped, rising from her desk. First, you show up late on Monday. Then the shoe incident. Now you want to challenge me again? Charlie blinked. His stomach turned. I'm just trying to understand the math. Ms. Galloway's voice cut like a whip. Out of my class. Charlie's heart pounded in his ears. What did I even... Disrespect. That's what you did. Out. He rose slowly. Every eye in the room followed him. He could feel his face burning as he grabbed his backpack. The door clicked shut behind him. In the hallway, Charlie leaned against a locker. His hands were shaking. He wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't disrespectful. At least, he didn't think he was. He pulled out his phone and texted one word to his dad. Seriously? Then he noticed a notification. Airdropped video from Ethan T. He tapped it. The clip showed the moment Ms. Galloway exploded. The whole class watching. Charlie sitting still, barely speaking. No aggression, no arrogance, just confusion. The caption, she lost it. He watched it again. And again. Then he pressed share and sent it. To one contact. Dad. Meanwhile, several time zones away from Charlie's heartache and humiliation, Tiger Woods put down his practice club. His phone vibrated once. He checked the screen, opened the message, and said nothing. Then slowly he turned the screen to the man sipping black coffee across from him. The man took the phone, watched the clip. His expression didn't change. Earl Woods Sr. stood. Pack your things, he said, voice low. We're going to the school. Back in room 204, Ms. Galloway returned to her desk, muttering under her breath. She had no idea what kind of storm she'd just invited. The winds were already turning, and the roar of rotor blades was only hours away.